Assalamu alaikum मेरे बच्चों, कैसे हैं आप? I do hope that all of you will be having a very good time of your life and you will be focusing quite aggressively on your studies. Today we are going to discuss another important topic in MDCAT English, that is punctuation. Now punctuation can be very tricky, but I'll make sure that you understand all the ins and outs of punctuation. So let's go to the lightboard and start our lecture. मेरे बच्चों, we are at the lightboard and today, as I've told you in the intro, we are going to discuss about a very important thing in grammar, that is punctuation. Now punctuation is not the part of speech, but it involves so many errors that can be asked in MDCAT or even in ECAT. Before moving on to different ingredients of punctuation and how they create errors, first let me show you why punctuation is needed. Is important. Because in FSC you normally feel कि बस 5 नंबर का सवाल है, कुछ तुक्के शुक्के लगा के कुछ साइंस हम ठीक लगा ही देंगे and then I'll get away with it, कुछ 2-3 नंबर तो मिल ही जाएंगे, एक आध नंबर कट भी गया तो खैर है. But punctuation is very important. Why? Because जब आप बोल रहे होते हैं, when you are audible, you can show your expressions, you can show the meaning of your words by certain pauses, certain stresses, आप certain styles आप कह सकते हैं. अपने आपने वो सबने एक बड़ी फेमस मूवी है, मैं नाम नहीं लूँगा उसका एक डायलॉग है, वो इंटरव्यू करने जाती है उसको जेल में, जो हीरोइन है हीरो को, तो वो एलियन होता है, तो वो उसको कहता है कि तुम्हारे यहाँ भाषा का बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है, तुम्हारे में लैंग्वेज का बहुत प्रॉब्लम है. वो पूछती है कैसे, कहते तुम एक ही वर्ड को मीनिंग ट्विस्ट करते रहते हो. जैसे उसमें वो कहता है अच्छा, यू मस्ट रिमेंबर दैट सीन. ठीक है, अब वो आपको ऑब्वियसली उसका आइडिया होगा. इफ़ नॉट तो डे टू डे हम कहते हैं, हमारी अम्मा अब्बा हमें कह रहे होते हैं लाड से, मेरा बेटा शहज़ादा है, तो शहज़ादा है. ठीक है, और इन्हीं वर्ड्स को ट्विस्ट करके हमारे हाथ से ग्लास टूट जाए, कुछ और हो जाए, कोई ऐसा हम कारनामा दिखा दें, तो उसके बाद हमारे अम्मी अब्बा कह रहे होते हैं शहज़ादा ही है. तो द सेम वर्ड्स बट नाउ दे कन्वे डिफरेंट मीनिंग्स. अब जब हम बोल रहे हैं, when we are audible we can guess the meaning by certain style, certain stresses. बट जब हम लिख रहे हैं तो obviously we are not aware of it कि ये कौन से वाला शहज़ादा कहा जा रहा है. ठीक है, got it? So here we need punctuation. यहाँ पर हमें punctuation की ज़रूरत पड़ती है कि to clearly communicate the meanings, कि हम असल में क्या बात करना चाह रहे हैं. For example, I'm writing a sentence. A woman without a man is nothing. Here, actually I'm suggesting कि खातून अपने मर्द के बगैर कुछ नहीं है. And on the other hand, if I write a woman without her man is nothing. Now here, with the same words, I'm conveying a completely different meaning. Here I want to suggest that without a woman, man is nothing. वहाँ मैं कह रहा था कि खातून मर्द के बगैर कुछ नहीं है, और जबकि यहाँ मैं कह रहा हूँ कि एक मर्द जो है वो खातून के बगैर कुछ नहीं है. वैसे दोनों एक दूसरे के बगैर कुछ नहीं है. So do not be gender biased. एक और एग्जांपल देखते हैं। Let's eat grandmother. Now here I want to suggest that I दादी अम्मा खाना खाते। Now let's remove the comma. Let's eat grandmother. इसका मीनिंग क्या होगा? Completely different, because here you are saying कि जाओ और दादी अम्मा को ही खा जाओ. Obviously we do not want to suggest that. Then I have some more examples for you. I find my inspiration in cooking. My family and my friends. इसका मतलब क्या है कि what are the inspirational things for me? Obviously, the first thing is I love cooking. I find my inspiration in cooking, then in my family, and then in my friends. Well, on the other hand, if I write I find my inspiration in cooking, my family and friends. Now here it will convey a completely different meaning. Here you are saying कि मैं क्या कह रही हूँ, मेरा जज्बा मुझे क्या चीज़ जोश दिलाता है कि अपने ख़ानदान और अपने दोस्तों को पका के खा जाऊँ. Obviously, this is not what you want to say. Then number 7, it is interesting. I'm sorry, I love you. भी दो बातें मनाया जा रहा है कि भी मुझे माफ़ कर दो, कोई बात नहीं, मुझे तुमसे मोहब्बत है. And the next one is very funny. That is, I'm sorry, I love you. It means that I feel sad about it. मुझे अफसोस है कि मुझे तुमसे मोहब्बत है. Obviously, you do not intend to say that. Obviously, आपकी यही ख्वाहिश होगी कि कोई बात नहीं जी, हम बहुत अच्छे दोस्त हैं, मुझे तुमसे बड़ी मोहब्बत है, गुड इनफ, कोई बात नहीं, गलती हो जाती है, माफ़ करके आ जा यार, आगे बढ़ते हैं, कोई मसला नहीं. So this is how punctuation can create errors. And now the last one and the most hilarious one for you. The teacher said he is an idiot. Now, it's a very common thing. We often say that, the teachers. But इसी की जब हम punctuation change करेंगे, it will become a very funny thing to have. देखिएगा, the teacher said he is an idiot. अल्लाह ना करे. I know आप सारे बहुत अच्छे बच्चों. You will never say that. But that can be the case, and that is why I always emphasize, and that is why I am telling you that punctuation is very, very important, because it can change the meaning, it can change the whole sense of the sentence. Because अगर हम ये नहीं करेंगे, punctuation नहीं use करेंगे, the meanings can be derived in any way the reader wants. Like वो इसको यूं भी पढ़ सकता है और यूं भी पढ़ सकता है. Obviously it won't be clear. What do you want to suggest? So that is where punctuation comes into play. So hopefully आपको punctuation का purpose जो है वो समझ में आ गया होगा. Now we move on to the next step, and that is regarding the errors of punctuation. So students, now we are moving towards the ingredients of punctuation, and the very first one is the most common of them, that is full stop. You use it every day and you know the basic usage. At the first place, it is used at the end of a complete thought. Whenever we finish one saying, then we use a full stop at the end of that chunk. For example, he is going to Lahore next week. Now here we have finished saying what we wanted to say. That is why we are using full stop. This is what we mean by complete thought. Secondly, it is used at the end of an indirect question. Now what is indirect question? It is a question hidden under the statement. It is a question that is actually not a question. It looks like a question, but it is not, because it is hidden under an affirmative statement. For example, if I say, I do not know what he is doing nowadays. Now you can clearly tell that what he is doing nowadays, it is not actually a question. It is actually a part of the statement which is, I do not know. So this one is called the indirect question, and it does not take the question mark. It always takes the full stop, because here we are not treating it as a question, we are treating it as an affirmative statement. Thirdly, it is used at the end of a polite request. So polite request के end पे हम इसे use करते हैं. Polite request क्या होती है? जिसके जवाब में you are not expected to hear no. मसलन अगर मैं किसी बच्चे से कहूँ Okay, will you please bring me a glass of water? Now I'm not expecting that he'll say no, I won't. I'm just using this will you please for my mannerism. ये question नहीं है, it is just a request and I expect that this request will be entertained. I'm not expecting a refusal against that request. So this will be called a polite request, or obviously because we are not asking a question, we are just showing our mannerism through that polite request. That is why it will not take the question mark, it will take the full stop. Fourthly, and most commonly, it is used after Mr. and Mrs. This is the most common use as far as your MDCAT or your FSC is concerned. बार बार आप इसके साथ use करते हो. You say Mr. Stewart, Mrs. Norma. Why? Because Mr. एक abbreviation है और उसके बाद हम use करते हैं. That is the most common thing. Then you use it after primary abbreviations. Now what are primary abbreviations? That actually denote a word in an abbreviation. For example, if I say MA, that is Masters of Arts. So here M and A, they both represent a primary, they are actually the primary abbreviation because they both represent a word. M stands for Masters and A stands for Arts. But if I move further and write down B.Com, here you see that it will only be used after B and not after C, because B represents Bachelors of Commerce and COM, they collectively represents commerce. B for bachelor and COM for commerce. So हम जो full stop है अपना वो commerce के बाद use करेंगे, not after C or O or M, because O and M they are secondary abbreviations and they do not take any full stop. Next, government agencies and international bodies do not take full stop. अगर हम इनकी abbreviation करेंगे तो they will not take full stop. For example, if I have to say FIA, it will not take any full stop. If I say NAB, it will be free of any full stop. Then if I say UNO or UNICEF, all these abbreviations will also be without full stop, because they are the names of international organizations or government agencies. And lastly, titles do not take full stop. Titles के साथ भी हम full stop नहीं लगाते. For example, if I had to say clearing in the sky, now it will not be ended with a full stop. इसके बाद full stop लगाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. So these are the common uses of full stop. Now we are heading towards the most important one, and that is the use of comma. Now comma is the most important ingredient as far as punctuation is concerned, और सबसे ज़्यादा errors भी आपको comma में ही आते हैं. At the first place, it is used to separate adverb phrase or clause at the start of a sentence. If there is an adverb phrase or adverb clause at the start of the sentence, it will always be separated by comma. For example, in the morning, as she left the apartment, she put the card house into her purse. Here you can clearly tell that in the morning it is a phrase, and as she left the apartment, that is actually the clause. And if these phrases and clauses are used at the start of the sentence, it will take obviously comma, or I can say that this phrase or this clause will be separated by a comma. So सबसे पहला use तो आपका ये है. Then secondly, it is used to separate an adverb of comment at the start of a sentence. If you have adverb of comment at the start of the sentence, it will always be separated by a comma. What is adverb of comment? We have already discussed in detail in our lecture regarding adverb. You can go and look at it. But commonly, they are fortunately, unfortunately, luckily, unluckily, providentially, all these are called adverbs of comment. If I say unfortunately, he could not survive the injuries, and in the next option I say unfortunately he could not survive the injuries. You can clearly tell that our right option will be option alpha, because unfortunately is an adverb of comment, and whenever you have adverb of comment at the start of the sentence, it will always be separated by a comma. So अब बाकी के हम comma के uses देखते हैं अगले chunk में. Thirdly, we use comma. It is used to separate a list of things. It can be anything. It can be noun, it can be pronoun, or it can be anything. For example, if I say Hera, Amna, Sheba, and Fatima are past friends. Now I'm separating 4 nouns, and for separation I have used comma. For the last 2 you may use conjunction. Okay? But for separating the nouns we use actually comma. Then it is used to separate phrases and clauses in a sentence. For example, if I say rising early in the morning taking a bath with warm water going for a walk in the morning and having a good breakfast help you maintain your health. Now these are the different phrases, or I should say clauses. Rising early in the morning, it is a phrase. Taking a bath, it is a phrase. Going for a walk, it is a phrase. And then having a good breakfast, that is also a phrase. ठीक है? So इनको जब हम collectively इसके साथ देखेंगे तो it will obviously become a clause. Like if I say rising early in the morning help you maintain. So in that way I said that it is actually clause. But you may think a phrasism, but actually they are clauses. So इन clauses को separate करने के लिए भी हम multiple clauses को separate करने के लिए what we are doing is we are using comma. Then the most important one it is used to separate an independent and dependent clause. For example, if I say if he requests me, I shall help him. You can clearly tell that to separate these two clauses, I have used comma. Or if I say after taking a bath, he went to his office. Now here you can clearly feel and clearly tell that to separate these two clauses I have used comma. Then it is used to separate reporting and reported speech. रिपोर्टिंग और रिपोर्टेड स्पीच को सेपरेट करने के लिए भी हम कॉमा यूज करते हैं. एग्जाम्पल मैं इसके नीचे लिख रहा हूं. He said, I am not feeling well. Now to separate these two speeches, the reporting speech and the reported speech, we are using comma. And you know कि reporting speech क्या होती है? That actually informs something. So here this one is called reporting speech and this one is called reported speech. Now this reported speech can be divided into two parts, two chunks. For example, if I say the teacher said he is absolutely a gem. Now here The reporting speech is in the mid. And to separate this reporting speech from the reported speech, I have used comma on both sides. So this is very important. अगर reporting speech mid में होगी तो फिर तो आपके लिए दोनों sides पे comma लगाना important हो जाएगा. And if it is at the end तो फिर obviously end पे लगाएंगे. For example, if I say he is a man of wisdom, said John. Now here, to separate the reporting speech with the reported speech, we have used comma. While the reporting speech here is at the end. So it is not at all compulsory कि reporting speech जो वो start ही में होगी. It can be in the start of the sentence, it can be at the end of the sentence, or it can be in the mid of the sentence. So दोनों सूरतों में इसको separate करने के लिए आप comma use करेंगे. Then another important usage of comma is used to express parallel comparison. We have discussed in detail what we mean by parallel comparison in our lecture regarding adjective. Parallel comparison, फिर एक बार बता देता हूँ वैसे, it is a comparison made in two different clauses. As I say, the earlier you leave, the better it is. कि जितना जल्दी आप निकलेंगे यहाँ से उतना ही आपके लिए बेहतर है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, बड़ा ही बदनाम ज़माना जुमला हमारे लिए, द हायर you go, the cooler it is. Here, to separate these two clauses, you will have to use the comma. Then it is used after however and therefore. Disjunctive conjunction इसको कहते हैं, but no need to remember that difficult name. Just remember that after however and therefore we use comma. If I say, एक बुक की लाइन ही आपको दे रहा हूँ, we however believe that this rare event took place. The dying sun की लाइन है, थोड़ा सा उसको मैंने शॉर्ट कर दिया. We however believe that some 2000 million years ago this rare event took place. So after however we are actually using comma. Then fruit and vegetable therefore were not available all through the year. Here you can see that after therefore we are using comma. Now the question arises what to use before, however, or therefore. It depends. We'll discuss it in the chunk of semicolon. So students, we are moving on, and the eighth usage of comma is it is used to separate So this is the eighth usage of comma, and that is to separate compound nouns. Now what do we mean by compound nouns? What is compound noun? If I say the rich and the poor, the high and the low, the wise and the fool, all must surrender themselves before the law. Now this is what we mean by compound noun. The rich and the poor, this is a compound noun. ठीक है, हम उन दोनों की इकट्ठे बात कर रहे हैं. Then the high and the low, this is also a compound noun. The wise and the fool, this is also a compound noun. So इनको separate करने के लिए भी हम क्या use करते हैं? We use comma. Then we use comma to set off contrasting elements. Contrasting elements को भी separate करने के लिए हम comma use करते हैं. For example, you not your brother are wise. You not your brother are wise. कि अब हम इसकी बात करें, उसके भाई की बात नहीं करें. So this one, this chunk will be called contrasting element. Or if I say you not your colleagues deserve appreciation. कि ये appreciation तुम्हारा हक है ना कि तुम्हारे colleagues का. तो this is what we call the contrasting elements. इनको separate करने के लिए भी you can clearly see that we are using comma. आगे बढ़ते हैं. It is also used to separate two identical words. If I say a very famous quote, beauty is truth, truth is beauty. और ये वाकई सच है. दुनिया में सच्चाई से बड़ी खूबसूरती और कोई नहीं है. So we are using the identical word truth, and here we are also using truth, and to separate these two identical words we are using comma. So इन सारी जगहों पर हमने क्या करना है, we'll have to use comma. Then it is also used to separate introductory yes or no. जो इनिशियल आपका रिस्पॉन्स है yes और no में, उसको सेपरेट करने के लिए भी हम क्या यूज करते हैं, वो यूज कॉमा. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, if I say yes I shall attend the convocation. Now here, to separate this response, this initial response, we are using comma. Or if I say no, I cannot agree to this. I cannot agree to this proposal. Here again, just to set off this introductory response, we are using comma. Then a very important usage of comma is to separate a question at the end of a sentence. Now this is very important and this can be tricky. If I say here you will help me want you. Now this is a question, and to separate that question you can see that we are using comma. But the important thing is कि हमने कब यहाँ क्वेश्चन में नेगेटिव यूज करना है और कब यूज नहीं करना. दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. You cannot ignore me. Can you? Now you can clearly see that in the first sentence we ask a question using a negation, and in the second we didn't. So ये कैसे determine करेंगे कि क्वेश्चन में negation आएगी या नहीं आएगी? It's very simple. If the statement is affirmative, ये दोनों reverse चलेंगे. If the statement is affirmative, the question will be asked in negative, and if the statement is negative, the question will be asked in affirmative. Here you see, you will help me. It's an affirmative statement, but the question we are using is in negative. Want you. And then here the statement is in negative. You cannot ignore me. आप ऐसा नहीं कर सकते. Can you? Here the question is in affirmative. Here we are not adding any negation to the question. So ये थोड़ा सा बस आपने ख्याल रखना है, because sometime you miss that trick कि किस में आपने negation add करनी है और किस में negation add नहीं करनी. So that is a crucial thing to do. Then a very common use of comma, it is used to show non-restrictive elements of a sentence. Now you know what do we mean by non-restrictive. We have already discussed in detail while discussing adjectives. Non-restrictive क्या होता है कि अगर आप उसको remove भी कर दें, even then the main sense of the sentence does not change. For example, if I say my sister who is a psychologist is coming here next week. Here you can see that this part of the sentence, who is a psychologist, that is a non-restrictive part. Even if I say my sister is coming here next week, that is the main thought of the sentence. So even if I omit, it will not make any difference at all. That is why it is called a non-restrictive clause. और उसी non-restrictive clause को express करने के लिए, उसको set aside करने के लिए वो use comma. The same thing can be applied to non-living things. For example, my house which is located in Murray has been sold for $50 lakhs. ठीक है, FBR को नहीं बता देना, वैसे बता रहा हूँ. My house which is located in Murray has been sold for 50 lakhs. Now here, even if I remove that element, it will not make any difference. ठीक है, which is located in Murray, that has nothing to do. The main point was my house has been sold for 50 lakhs. This is how you actually separate the non-restrictive elements. Then finally, it is used to replace the omitted words. Sometimes while writing down something, we omit certain words. हम कुछ words को क्या करते हैं, completely ignore कर देते हैं, because we go with the flow. We have the background और हम उसी background पर जो है वो उन certain words को omit कर देते हैं. But we replace these words with a comma. For example, if I say he is a hard worker, his brother no. So here what we have done is we actually wanted to say that he is a hard worker, but his brother is not a hard worker at all. But we have omitted all these words. और हमने उसकी जगह क्या कर दी है? In replacement of these words, we have used commas. He is a hard worker, his brother not at all. So it conveys the meaning. But you will have to use commas before and after the subject of the omitted clause. Last usage of comma is it is used to separate different chunks of addresses. Addresses के जो different parts हैं, different chunks हैं, उनको replace करने के लिए भी हम क्या use करते हैं? We use comma. For example, house number 600, block B, model town, Lahore, Punjab, Pakistan. Now, to use different chunks, different segments, we are using comma. So here is all about comma and full stop, and that is it for today's lecture. ले मेरे बच्चों, that is it for today. I do hope that you would have understood the concept of punctuation and more importantly, the correct usage of full stop and comma. In case you have any query, any question, use this comment box and ask whatever you want to ask. We shall be eagerly waiting to answer all your questions and queries. मिलते हैं अगले लेक्चर में. Till then, अपना बहुत सा ख्याल रखिएगा. जीते रहें, खुश रहें. अल्लाह हाफ़िज़.